Hello, everyone, and welcome to another VSM Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Krakowski, joined by Goran Vazovic.
How's it going, everybody?
And we have another guest today, very special guest, good friends with Goran, I believe. Is that right?
That's right. He's a really good friend and a life partner, mate, slash, Tony Robbins aficionado, because we went to the whole seminar and that kind of brought us and the whole group way close, which is a good thing.
You're the first life mate we've had on the podcast. Yes. So without further ado.
Shaz. He was
Yeah.
He was there.
He beat me to it. He beats me to everything.
That guy. Ugh.
But we are joined today by Charles Clutter, who is the owner and general manager of Monarch Builders and Commercial Services. How's it going today?
Going well. Thanks for having me. Appreciate finally being able to get over here to St. Paul and get on this podcast.
No, we're really happy to have you.
Welcome, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone who's friends with Goran must, of course, be
an entrepreneur. The two people.
Yeah,
here's one.
So really, we brought you on today just to tell embarrassing stories about Goran. So if you have any of those you want to get off your chest, feel free to let those loose.
Hey, whatever happens or happened in West Palm Beach stays there, okay?
Fair enough.
We're not going to talk about the time that I ate 4 patties in one burger. Okay, yeah. We're not going to be talking about that, all right?
Yeah, that to be continued. That's Goran's cooking show that's coming up later. So anyway, so Monarch Builders and Commercial Services. Can you tell me a little bit about the company and kind of how you got involved?
So Monarch Builders and Commercial Services, really a rebranding of a company that I started in 2010 with two other business partners. Really what it was at that time in 2010 was more of a storm restoration company. And I know when people hear that, they think of storm chasers and unruly individuals, which we do have those in our business. And
that's true of every industry.
That's in every industry, yeah. Right? And so when we started, what we wanted to do is be customer focused and try to educate customers on what was really going on in the industry, not only on our end with construction, but also with the insurance companies as well. And we felt that if we were to educate the customer, that they would feel better about the process. Knowing more about the process obviously makes you feel more comfortable moving forward with certain companies. So we started in Wisconsin, we expanded to Illinois, and then up into Minnesota as well. And then just recently, at the end of 2015, we chose to part ways. And we had a license agreement to continue to use the name. So they use it down in Illinois and Wisconsin, and I use it up here in Minnesota. At the end of 2016, I decided that it was probably a good idea just to rebrand the whole company. I had started to look at other revenue streams within the construction industry and found that it was something that I could do, and it was probably best to diversify the business. And so thereby starting Monarch Builders and Commercial Services, which what we do now is we are in the storm restoration game, if you will, but also have expanded to commercial installations, working with big box stores like Walgreens and Staples. Okay. Going in, doing remodeling projects for them throughout the country and here in Minnesota, and then also moving into the retail portion of restoration and remodeling. And again, kind of going back to the transition with my business partners, it was an amicable transition. I think at the end of the day, it was just a matter of vision, where I feel that they maybe were more interested in making money. I was interested in building something, and so that's why I'm here now.
Got it. So do you guys handle pretty much anything now? I know you mentioned that you expanded the scope of what you do, remodels for large companies and stuff like that, but what all does that entail? Like, do you do the design? How in depth do you get?
Well, I think, maybe I'm wrong, but the storm restoration. So we're talking about roof, siding, windows. Would that be like the core of
for the storm restoration? Yes, we're looking at exterior hail damage, wind damage to roofing, siding, windows, and then you move into the new landscape of the retail remodeling, and then we're looking at kitchens and bathrooms and basements, and then the commercial services, which I kind of touched on, going in and just assisting in the remodeling process of big box stores. Something that I think is interesting about the commercial side that I never really understood is that, say Walgreens, for instance, they have 12,083 stores or something like that. Instead of being in the storm restoration side where you have maybe 5 potential customers and you get 2 or 3 of those, a big box store, they start a program, and over time, to 2 or 3 years, they want to touch every store with that program. So now instead of having one job, essentially you have 1,283.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the additional revenue is great, but also it's kind of, as you mentioned, if they decide to do something, you can set your watch and your business to it because when the revenue streams are going to be coming, and you can allocate the funds necessary and then people, the job, etc. Versus, in the restoration business, it's if the weather is nice and there's nothing to be restored, you're kind of, SOL. But I'm glad that you kind of expanded into, doing these commercial services where now you have the opportunity to have year-round business, for many years. What were some of the challenges? Or again, I can't even, if I wanted to do that, I don't even know where to begin.
How do you get your foot in the door with those big
how do you even
corporations?
make that happen?
So in the commercial side of things, I am a subcontractor. So we have the general contractor who's able to go in and pull the permits, and they deal directly with the customer. And so now in that landscape, I'm a subcontractor. So it was essentially going out and knocking doors and talking to people and trying to learn more about the industry. What my plan is, or what I'd like to do is, continue to work as a sub, and the relationship that I have with the general contractor that I do work for, there's an understanding there where, I want to do good work for you and show you that I'm capable of doing it, but also understand that at some point, I want to go direct to some of these big box stores and be able to gain that, to kind of garner that relationship with them, to move forward without that middleman.
So, and going back to what you mentioned earlier about the way that you think about business in terms of it being more relational than transactional, is that something that you're upfront with them about? And are you then trying to ask for some guidance, some mentorship on how to do that on your own?
That's exactly right. I mean, I think in business, for me, transparency is huge. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of businesses struggle with that because they feel like they need to hide certain things, whether it be from their employees or their customers. And I think at the end of the day, that's something that either contributes to their demise or doesn't allow them to grow and expand as quickly as they'd like to. So there is transparency there. I'm looking to this person in this company saying, hey, I'm willing to be here and do great work for you, but this is a two-way street. I need some education. I need to be tutored on how to deal with these larger corporations, because as a smaller business or company, to be able to walk into that door of a Walgreens or Staples or whomever, they're not willing to answer my calls at this time. So.
Yeah, and I have to imagine as a GC, and I'm speaking a little bit out of my element here, obviously, but almost the same as an employer looking at any employee. If you have someone who comes on who's ambitious, who's hungry, who tells you what they want, you may not get to keep them in whatever role that they're in forever. But I would imagine that they look at your enthusiasm very positively and are more willing to help because of that. Has that been the case?
That's true. I think it's interesting. As I'm expanding this year, one of the challenges for me, and I think it was a stumbling block for when I was with the Encompass Builders, is that we were so hesitant, scared really to hire employees. We just looked at it as a liability,
right?
Not as an asset. And so, you say that about that, the general contractor looking at me and saying, well, where is this guy going to go? And I just have to be upfront and tell him where I want to be. And I find as I start to interview individuals during the hiring process. For instance, I was looking for a office assistant / marketing person. So this girl who just graduated from Iowa State met with me, and I said, what are your aspirations? Is construction really somewhere you want to be, or is it just the marketing portion, so it doesn't really matter? And she said, to be quite honest with you, I'd like to work at Space 150, which is a larger marketing firm in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
I think they actually have an office in London and one in New York as well. I said, well, that's great. I said, wouldn't it be ideal for you to get into a company that, seemingly from outside eyes is starting from the ground, and for you to put together a package of marketing materials and be able to get this, whether it's get first page of Google or, do all those aspects of marketing for a business, and able to go into Space 150 in 2 or 3 years with a portfolio of work
right
behind you. And also, I said, I know people that, they did my branding work. I know people that work there, to be able to walk in with that. And I'm open with you, if that's your aspiration, let's work towards that. Let's do good work for me, and knowing that at some point you're going to exit, give me some time to get someone in there. And so again, with that transparency and be able to not only have an employee, but be able to work with that individual and kind of mentor them a little bit, especially when they're just coming out of college, to achieve their dreams.
Well, yeah, I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is they have someone, they have a more entry-level type position, and the type of person that you want in that position is probably going to have the ability to move beyond that at some point. The person who is comfortable being there forever isn't the person that you want there, Exactly. So you got to kind of find that balance and look at it as, I can bring this person along. They're going to help build the company in these 2-3 years that we work together. And then when they're going out into the world, or if they move up within the company, that's great. But even if they go out, I have someone who I have a strong connection with, who's now in my network, bringing me closer to this other circle as well.
Plus, I think the value that you touched on is the transparency and the openness from both sides. When you interviewed her, she was like, hey, this is what I'm aspiring to do, where I want to be. And she kind of laid that out where, somebody else, and I think majority of other employees were like, well, if you're not really here for a lifetime, I don't want you. But then you kind of understood that, and you pitched it in a way where this would actually be a benefit to work here for, a couple years, and then go into bigger and better things that she wants to do, that are a true passion of hers, which I don't think you see that in very many companies. Right. And it's very important. Everybody wants to hold somebody in a specific space or a role forever or indefinitely, but I think it's much more beneficial, and the value that you're going to get from her, because you guys are both working towards that mutual goal in the next couple years, is going to be tremendous, because she's going to be happy. And, that's going to be a key ingredient to having a really good employer relationship.
Yeah, and I think also, when I'm looking to hire as well, and this individual kind of touched on that, I think it's a lot better to have someone that is going to buy into your vision, as an enthusiastic about, going to work every day,
right, and
have less qualifications. Because at the end of the day, there are things that, those are teachable things,
right?
That innate, internal, will that someone's always, I want to do more, put more on my plate. I want to be, first one in the door, last one out, and those you can't teach those things, So
right. Yeah, they say hire for mindset.
Right.
And because the rest you can really teach. So if somebody doesn't have the vision or the mindset that you and your company have, it's really not going to be a good fit, no matter how many qualifications they have.
Sure.
So
how'd you get into this business specifically in the first place? So going back to Wisconsin, I think you mentioned, and just the genesis.
Yeah, so it actually started before that. Excuse me. I started with a friend of mine who owned a company in Eagan, Minnesota, and just kind of got to learn the business. And I think I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit, or wanted to do something or build something. So after working there for, I think it was 2 years, that's when I struck out with those two other individuals. And we started in Wisconsin actually because of a non-compete we had with that company, and we honored that.
Oh, I see.
Yep.
Got it. Okay, so you start the company then in Wisconsin, and is it you and some friends who are also in the industry who got together to do this?
Yep. They weren't necessarily, I mean, I guess they had become friends through working together or working on projects together. And so we decided to form a group, start in Wisconsin, and that's an area we chose in the Madison area because of a certain type of window that they had that we were targeting that was susceptible to hail damage.
You found a niche, basically. And
exactly.
Capitalized.
And I can't take credit for that. The company that I was working with at that time really started that particular niche with dealing strictly with windows.
Okay.
Most of the companies in our space, in the restoration portion anyway, strictly focus on the roof and siding. So.
Okay. What I've noticed in my experience of working with people in the industry, people who are, going around talking to people, knocking on doors after a hailstorm, et cetera, is the skill set that they have is the ability to communicate with the insurance company and really stretch what they're able to get for the homeowner who is their customer. So, I always think it's amazing that they always bring this extra level of customer service to the person that they're supposed to be representing their best interest. And yet still occasionally there's somewhat of a negative connotation associated with it. That to me never makes sense. It seems backwards,
No, that excuse me, that's true. I think what we try to do, we don't look at the insurance company in an adversary way. We want to work with both parties, ensuring that there's a fair compensation, for the homeowner. At the end of the day, they're our customer. But if you look at if an adjuster comes out to a property and they don't necessarily agree with, what we're pointing out as damage, and we feel that the homeowner should be compensated for, we instruct our guys to, there's no argument there. There's no picking fights. You accept what that person has to say. You hold firm. You educate the homeowner on how that conversation went, what was compensated, what was missed out on, and then if the homeowner feels comfortable enough to go back to the insurance company, we'll have a new person come back out to try to make up for what was lost in the last adjustment. So.
Got it. But still, that just seems like a pretty amazing service to offer. And in terms of me as the homeowner, there's not a ton of involvement that I need. Like
right.
You're kind of doing it all for me.
I think the real issue when it comes to the negativity that's kind of cast upon the industry is when we have a storm here in Minnesota, and it's a fairly large storm. You have a lot of companies that come from outside the state, and they're misrepresenting themselves, saying that they're here from Minnesota. They've been here, even though they have, whether it be a Texas license plate and a Missouri number or whatever it might be.
Right.
And so, they come up here, they do work, whether it's, good or bad, I'm not sure. But the real issue lies in if the homeowner does have an issue, maybe next year, they're nowhere to be seen. They don't answer their phone anymore, and they've left Minnesota, gone on to the next storm. And so that's when people start talking about storm chasers, where everywhere that I've worked, we set up our office, we are there, we're not going anywhere.
Right.
So if a storm hits in Wyoming or California or North Carolina, we're here, in Minnesota. So
right. And months after the storm is gone, you're still here for them to follow up with. You're not.
Yep. And my biggest thing with that is, you always in any industry there is that customer that just they want everything. They essentially want you to build them a new house.
I'm familiar with that customer.
No way.
Sounds like Gordon. I'm always willing to go the extra mile, put the extra dollar in within reason to make sure that our customers are satisfied and that they're with us long term, because they're not a repeat customer. You don't know when they will be. It's not year after year. It's not I don't have, something that I can offer them, every day or every week. But if a storm does hit, 4 years down the road, or if they say, I'm ready to do my kitchen remodel, or if they have a friend that wants something done, they remember to say, hey, there was an issue, but this is how these guys took care of it.
Right.
And that's the bigger thing. If there is an issue, it's all on how you handle it.
Right. So what's the company size at right now?
As far as
employees, how many people do you have, subs that you use or salaried employees?
Yeah,
as well?
so the sub network is, wow. I mean, we ramp up and ramp down. So, capabilities that I have to bring subs in are in, the hundreds.
Okay.
We have independent sales guys right now. We have 7. And then at this point, I'm in the hiring phase. So if anyone's looking for a job, I'm looking to hire project managers and office assistants.
That's a good shout out. How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can email me your resume at charles@monarch, B as in boy, C as in Charlie, S as in Sam.com. And I'll even take phone calls directly at area code 651-274-0585. And again, just trying to create an atmosphere within the office that I actually learned from Goran.
Shout out to me.
Yeah. I love this office, and I kind of, started to put my office together in a way that was inviting, that was, people want to come to work. They want to be here. When you bring a customer in, they're going, wow, okay, so these guys they're going to do my house.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can dig that. So.
Right.
I feel the same way, and that was my same thought process. Really, is you could have done everything on a quote unquote on a budget, but you mentioned in the beginning, the reason why you and your partners parted ways is because they were all about making the money, and you wanted to build a company, and that's what I think. What I'm after, what Ryan's after, Dario, what everyone here is, we're all building a company, not just making money.
Right. And all that contact info we'll have in the liner notes as well on the show. So
for sure. Exactly.
If you are looking for a job, please reach out.
I'll even put that in the title. Attention, if you need a job, listen to this podcast. So
right. So you as the owner now, and this is, I think, it sounds like with the number of people you have, you're at kind of the stage where it gets a little bit more complicated, and there's new and unique challenges to the management. What's your kind of day-to-day like? What's your involvement like, and how do you manage a company that's growing at such a large rate?
Well, that's interesting because I am the day-to-day, and that's what I've been for the past, however many years in business. And the reason, that I've taken this risk, and part of the reason why I went to the Business Mastery with Goran and some other folks is...
Shout out Business Mastery.
Yeah, Business Mastery, BMD. So the biggest thing was becoming a business owner, not a business operator. And, we're kind of talking about this term entrepreneur, and I had to actually... I understand the concept, but I looked it up, the definition, right? It's... one who organizes, manages, and assumes the risk of a business or enterprise. Risk being the operative term,
word,
right?
yeah.
Right, exactly. And it's stretching myself to take these risks, knowing that I have this goal and continue to focus on this goal to turn from a business operator to a business owner, because I can't work on the vision on a day-to-day basis or a weekly basis when I'm doing accounts payable, accounts receivable,
right,
working with the internet, waiting for the Comcast guy, all these different things that take me away from really steering the ship of the business. And so instead of, trying to find partners to help me with that, it's finding the right people. And that's, we kind of talked about the hiring, to get in that can do the things, whether I can do them or I'm the best at them or not, that they can do more efficient than I can, and allow me to have time to focus on those goals and steer the ship to make sure that we're heading in the right direction.
Got it. So you're thinking more on a macro scale and trying to create general policy as opposed to day-to-day operations, handling sales, making sure that stuff goes through.
What's interesting to add to that, we've had many discussions even before our trip and during a trip and after our trip, that a lot of these things that are said or that we learn are kind of common knowledge, quote unquote, but the proof is really in the execution. So when he's like, well, I need to work on the business, not on the business, I'll do that, but now I have to go wait for the Comcast guy. The minute you make a decision to not do that and to allocate that time to someone else or hire it out, or you're actually focused on, hey, I'm going to build a business, and I know it's going to cost me money because I'm going to have to hire or I'm going to have to do whatever. It's really just that's that risk and that leap that an entrepreneur takes to move beyond being the operator.
Not without fear, I might add.
Right. Yeah. Some trepidation always goes with those.
And one of the things I actually gathered from Gordon is just going broke.
Yeah.
On a daily, weekly, monthly basis, or what have you.
Every 24 hours, man, I go broke.
Yeah, if you're trying or attempting to do things on a larger scale, and you want to be a true entrepreneur and you want to build something, you have to do that. You can't be timid. You know.
So on that note, what were some of maybe life experiences or challenges or mentors? How have you kind of prepared for that, or what have led you to that realization that that you're going to do this? And
yeah, so a little bit about my background. I guess we can go there now. I came from nothing essentially. Mother. Drug addict, never met my biological father, lived with my mother until I was about 12 years old, food stamps, living in Section 8, her drug use and with all these people coming through our house.
So a pretty rough upbringing, and by no means were you born with a silver spoon in your mouth.
Right.
And this was in Minnesota, correct?
This was in Minnesota,
okay.
Yep. Living on the south side, when it was the true south side. That place is a suburb compared to what it was back then. And then foster care. I went into foster care. My mom had her rights taken away permanently at 12 years old. Going into foster care, dealing with that, not really having a sense of home. Moving out from ghetto, if you will, into a foster home that we moved into Eagan, which was this nice, beautiful suburb, and trying to transition and find what friends groups and all that type of stuff. And so I think a larger part of why I am where I am today is because of the life experiences I've had, because I've come from nothing and always really wanted something, I guess. And so it's something that's always been burning inside of me, whether it was trying to, some of these are the smaller things, right, that kind of get you to this point is, go back to that teacher and say, look at me because they told you never amount to something. Or going back to that coach that said, you're a true leader and you can do this. Why do you keep messing up?
Right.
Get your head together and going, hey, I finally figured it out. And so, all those things leading up to, I think were in the back of my head. And then you start to meet people who are in these positions. You go, and not to take away from any of these individuals to say, man, if, they did it, why can't I?
Yeah.
And then not looking at them like with animosity, but saying, how can I be around you a little bit more? How
right.
can you help me get, help me get to where you are, And so asking those questions and starting to seek out mentors and being around people that are in these, in these places more and more. And doing some of the things that they're doing. I just finished 10X on the drive over here.
Yeah.
Instead of the gym, listening to music now, I'm listening to books. At home before I go to bed, I'm reading.
I'm glad you're listening to it, not reading it on the way over.
Right.
Shut out Grant Cardone.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So what I always find interesting and fascinating is, did you find that the transition to then moving to Eagan to getting in that suburban foster home, did that open your eyes to how other people live and the possibilities at all, or did you already kind of know all that? What was the impetus, I guess, that pushed you forward to decide to make something different for yourself?
I think that the bigger thing, and if I continue my story on to my early 20s, when I got to Eagan, that did give me a kind of a sense of, wow, my friends are driving BMWs to school.
Right.
What the heck is going on? What do their parents do? You know what I mean? And, for a time, even within that, I was looking at them going, oh, man, do you think you got some problems or something? You driving to school in a BMW? Not realizing that, maybe their parents were working too much. They didn't have time for them, or there was a divorce. So, and that hit them hard and those types of things. So opening my mind up to other people's struggles. And, even though I thought I had the biggest struggle, other people were going through, and it was all, kind of whatever your perspective is on
right.
that. So early when I was 21, and my whole history has been, I had this big chip on my shoulder. Go to school, someone say something wrong, I'm fighting. I was always taught that, hey, you know, if you get into an argument with someone, it escalates to a fight. As long as you don't bring a knife or a gun, you guys fight it out. You have a few bumps and bruises. You get up, you go on about your way. Even when I was younger, some of my best friends that I had, we got into fights first before we became friends. And I always thought that that was okay. So 21, 2001 or so, I was at the Taste of Minnesota with some friends, got into an altercation with another guy. At the end of the day, I punched him, he fell, hit his head, and he passed away 6 days later.
Wow.
So going, through that process, the court proceedings, I ended up going to prison for 5.5 years. And really kind of shook me to the core. And it was not so much, I think initially it was kind of a why me, but then when I turned that around, I looked at, that guy's mother and that guy's family and friends that was impacted. And it was never my intention. I think, people that know me know that, there was no malice in that. It's just, you got a problem, I got a problem, and we're fighting.
Right.
And when you can see that something that you think is so small can escalate to something this big, something this egregious, it really makes you sit back and think. And obviously I had time to think.
Yeah.
So just quickly interject here. So to get the mindset right and, I guess bring the audience into this. So you had this a very tough, ridiculous upbringing. You had all these issues and you're like, hey, now you're in your 20s, like all those bad things, quote unquote, are behind me, right? So you're kind of okay. Now right. It's my turn, world, yep. Right? And through this like a crazy accident that no one could foresee, that it's just like 1 in a million type of a deal. This incident occurs, and your life goes 180, right? Where are you thinking, like, what is your mindset at that point in time? Let's say that, after the court proceedings and you were faced with like the actual reality of like, hey, this is happening. I have to, go to prison, and, am I going to be just another, quote unquote statistic? Did your mindset shift back into kind of what your upbringing was? And how were you able to overcome it? And obviously, you did your time, and you're a very successful person right now. So just bring us into that mindset of, when that actually happened, how did it sink in?
Yeah, obviously when you've, and I take full responsibility for, I can't say this person did that, or I take full responsibility. It was my fault. Shouldn't have let it escalate to that. But when I think back to that time when I first went to prison, my first week or two, I actually had a thought that said, okay, do I revert back to this kind of street, just kind of, you got to get by any way you can, or do I change my mindset to what I know I can do, even in this environment when it's not conducive to learning and this phantom word rehabilitation, because you have to make a decision to do those things no matter what program is or is not available to you within the confines of that place. You can educate yourself anywhere, right. Whether it's just saying the ABCs over and over again and saying them backwards, whatever. But what I figured out what I needed to do, and I think what a lot of people don't do that have struggles, is I had to go back and figure out why I had so much anger within me. And so I went back to my life and thought about, yes, we did live this way, but was it my fault? I was a kid. Right. Why should I put that on myself? My mom, was she a bad mother? She had a struggle that she couldn't deal with. She couldn't figure out or didn't have the resources to get past that, to be a better person, or her time ran out, whatever the case may be. And so why should I carry that? And so I went back and I looked at all those things, coupled with the items of thinking about the people that I had conversations with, like I talked about before, my coaches and certain teachers that said, hey, you have it in you to be something great. Why are you doing this stupid stuff? Yeah. You are a true born leader. I see it in you, the way that you talk to people. Why aren't you showing these kids, instead of spouting off your mouth, on how to be better and do better within, the confines of this high school? And so when I got into that environment of prison, I did set my mindset that I'm going to teach myself all that I can teach myself. I'm going to read as much as I can. I'm going to go help with GED classes. I'm going to help teach guys and all that. And what I found was there was a profound shift in the individuals around me that were kind of, what's this guy up to? Which way is he going to go? And then once I decided to make a decision on what I was going to do, they looked at that and said, I was kind of protected in a sense in the place. Like, nobody messes with that guy. He's trying to get out of here and he's trying to do right and do something with himself. And so I started to do that, and then I got into the speaking program where I'd get out and go to high schools and juvenile centers and talk to kids about my life and upbringing. And then that's when I started to put it into practice, right? And then I started doing more and saying, okay, I can do this. What else can I do?
And how much does talking about it and going out and trying to create a takeaway for these kids that you're speaking to help clarify it in your mind? Because you're forced to almost confront it more, right? And articulate your thoughts on it a little more.
It's huge because I always want to remember those things, but I want to keep them far enough away so I don't dwell on them, so they don't creep back in, and then I start to set it back into my old habits because I go, something bad happens, instead of powering through, I say, oh, why me? This happened to me again. Oh, it's just me. Like, problems don't hit everyone in the face every single day. And so it helps me to continue to go out and speak. And that's more of my passion and my kind of give back, if you will, to go out and speak to, high school students or individuals in the juvenile system. A program that I work with is Restorative Justice Community Action, where I'm a community member, and we sit down with kids that are going through the system. They've committed a crime. This is a kind of a time where we can come together and try to get them away from the system so they don't actually get into it. And so that's what I try to put my time into because it keeps me close to it,
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot lately about the way in which that I attribute a lot of my success in life to looking inward and trying to understand why I act the way that I do in a lot of situations, and my motivations, and really getting and learning the ability to take responsibility for myself and everything that happens around me, and not blaming situations, but being like, well, these are the options. I can adapt or I can falter. It sounds like you went through that on a much larger scale almost. Is there any advice that you have for people who are looking to find themselves? Because I know we have a lot of millennial listeners right now who, for whatever reason, kind of are suffering from ennui, that depression based on inactivity.
Yeah, the quest to find yourself, and because of technology and social media, you're connected. We're the most connected, but we're also, I feel like, the most kind of disconnected because we're connected through devices, not with persons and each other.
Yeah, I just find like a lot of my friends and people in my life are trying to emulate and do some of the things that I'm doing, and I'm trying to explain to them my mentality and mindset, but it's almost something that they have to create for themselves, and I don't know how to express that. Do you have any insight into this, or?
I mean, that's an interesting question, and I feel like I was just asked something similar to that. I think because of where we are with technology, everyone wants everything now.
Right.
They want to be who they are becoming now. And this thing is all about it, transition after transition after transition to a transformation of who you are on a daily basis. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm in the construction industry. Is that something that is my passion that I love to do? Not necessarily. I love when we have a happy customer. I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
And I feel, awesome that I'm able to take care of a customer and do right by them. But again, that's not my passion. That's not something I want to be doing on a daily basis. My passion is going out and speaking and giving back. And so through that, I think that people need to realize that I'm not doing on a daily basis what I'm passionate about, but I know if I cause myself or get myself in a mode to be as passionate about it as I can, to build what I want to build, to offer myself more time to work on myself, and then also be able to pursue my passion, it'll come. But it's not going to happen now.
Right. And I think with the, one of the Monday Motivation podcasts about, having the patience and knowing when it's the right time to strike or, sometimes, and, Gary Vee says, we only know him for the past 5 years, but what about the other 15 years that he was just freaking straight hustling, right?
Right.
And, who wants to put in the work? And a lot of times I equate, hard work to like doing prison time. Like how many people can really just say, you know what? Don't bother me for the next 6 years. That's a huge freaking commitment. And I know when I kind of made that deal with myself when I was like 7 or 8, like, hey, let's go. I was like, you're
okay.
I'm delivering newspapers. Hold on, Mom. I can't do this right now.
I was like, we're going to go into a mental prison for the next 2 decades to make sure that, the rest of your life, is something bigger and better that you want. But in all honesty, really kind of everything that we do on a daily basis, I really am passionate about, and I love it. And, interacting with people, is the highlight of my day. So you kind of become it. So at that point, you just kind of like, hey, this is who I am and I'm good. And every day that you get to do it is a great day.
And I think I coined this term. I thought about this in my away time. I like to say, a boy cannot become a boy cannot become a man by age alone. And so I think people think that they just, as they get older, these things just come to them or they pop in their head.
Right.
You need to work at these things on a daily basis. We talk about reading. Right. We talk about being around the right people. We talk about not being shy or hesitant to go approach someone. I used to tell my brothers and sisters when we were at home and they wanted to ask our parents, could they go do something? They'd be so afraid to do it.
Right.
What's the biggest thing? They could say no.
Yeah.
Either way, at least you can know and you can settle down and go do something within the house. And so, being able to just say, you know what, this is my passion, or this is where I'm heading, or this is what I have to do in order to get there, put together a plan and focus on it and go do it.
Well, what I always find frustrating when I'm working with a newer agent or somebody in general just who has a goal that they're trying to accomplish, whenever they say a statement that disqualifies their ability to ever do it, where it's like, I'm not that kind of person, I can't do that. Right. It's like, well, pick any sport. You can't, shoot 80% from the 3-point line either until you can, until you practice and do 40, 50, 60. And I think everything's a skill that you need to, I'm naturally an introvert. People don't believe me when I tell them that, but if you'd have known me 10 years ago, you'd have seen it.
I can see it in your eyes.
Oh. I see the fear. Yeah. But no, it was a skill that was practiced. So, I think your story is really inspiring. This one of the best podcasts we've had, definitely, so far.
All right, awesome.
Yeah. I'll take that.
Yes. There is a prize.
Yeah.
No, and that's, is there?
Yes, there is.
I got to ring a 10X buzzer or something.
Hey, you'll see.
So I guess, that's, we've used this word a couple of times, but, transparency. Someone in my position who, has a company might be hesitant to talk about these things and where they've come from, and homeowners that listen to this might say, I don't know if I want to work with someone like that. But at the end of the day,
that's what I was going to ask you. Has does that ever come up in a conversation? Because the stigma behind it, and you're not the and I'm going to say it on air. Obviously, I know you're my friend. You've been to prison, but I have other friends who've had similar, fates in their life to whatever reasons.
Right.
Some just, some unjust, some not even in the United States. Whatever. That's just life. But how does that does that ever come as part of a discussion in business? And how do you think that people react, especially, people that have never been through something like that?
Well, it's interesting because, I do just kind of throw it out there sometimes. With I've thrown out with a couple customers. I've thrown out with people whom I've just met.
Is it like the tape stops? Or
it's a really blank stare looking at me and then saying, I would have never have thought that. You just seem like such a genuine person, and you're so gregarious, and I'm, it's kind of like they're apologetic, like I'm so sorry that happened to you,
right?
And I think it's important for people to know these things. my wife works at Wayzata High School, and people there, they meet me, and then we're talking, and then somehow they find out or whatever, and they're just like, what? Like, Charles?
Right.
No way.
Right. And does it seem like it was like a lifetime ago for you? I mean, you're not 40 or
right.
But
Not yet. Getting close.
You're getting up there.
Yeah, getting up there. It really does, because of what I've done since I've been out. And I've intentionally, made strides to, again, always close enough to remember, but far enough away to not dwell on it. That time was eons ago for me.
Right.
When I was locked up.
Right. No, that's why it was interesting to hear as far as other people's feedback. And I'm not even sure the exact moment when you were told, but I just kind of like, oh yeah, okay, life happens as it does to me and Daniel, but sometimes, things get worse for some. But going back to kind of what we were talking about, the drive and the persistency to want to do something, and our generation having lack of it. And a lot of times I associated this with, me being an immigrant and, out hustling everyone else that was here that had a great life. But then, I look at Daniel Krakowski over here, the executive vice president of VSM, as someone who's had, if you look on paper, a solid upbringing in the greatest country in the world. And
Shut up, mom and dad.
Right. But he's out hustling people that I would bet on that they would out hustle him. But he's got the mindset of like, hey, you know what? I'm going to get it. And he does it day in and day out. So it kind of, it changed my opinion as well. I would never have made that bet based on my life experiences, but then you have these, we all have, 3 different life experiences, but the hustle and the intensity is there in each of us. So,
well, the one kind of common factor that I'm seeing, and I might be putting words in both of your mouths a little bit, but is just the constant desire to better yourself. What you mentioned, Charles, was that, perhaps the actual work itself, the idea of actually working on a house, may not be that thing that drives you. But you mentioned that the customer experience being a good one, them having a good deal go through with you, that provides some sense of accomplishment, as well as reaching out to kids and talking to them and being able to better them as well. And Goran, as a mentor to me, you're constantly giving me information and trying to improve what I can do. So it seems to me like the kind of the shared thread is the desire to better ourselves, to potentially better other people as well.
I think the second part of that is what really takes you to the next level.
Right.
If you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to take risks and you want to go to that next level, you have to bring up people with you, and be okay with if they outachieve you.
Right.
I think that you kind of you hit the nail on the head as far as one wanting to better themselves, and I think everybody essentially does. But for you to get to that level, I think what we all have in common is that we also have the strength to kind of question ourselves, right? Because who wants to grade yourself, or when you do, you grade yourself as, as the greatest person, right? But then that's not always the case. And I think when you are really the person that you yourself are your biggest critic, that's when I think you can kind of make magic happen and better yourself, because you're like, you know what? You didn't listen to 10 hours worth of audiobooks today. Don't slack off. Tomorrow you need to do 10 plus 5 more because you didn't do it. And if you don't have that type of kind of, I don't know, just the mindset, no one else is going to do that, and I don't think you'll be able to keep excelling or growing or bettering yourself. So self-reflection.
Yeah. Being introspective.
So few people do it because it's so uncomfortable, and you just automatically give yourself an A. Whereas just go ahead and just label yourself an F and then get to work.
Work from there and be an A+ like Goran.
Exactly.
Nah, man, I'm still a D+.
Right on. Well, thanks so much for being here today. We went into so many topics. To me, very inspirational to hear your story. If people want to get a hold of Charles to reach out again, the website and the...
So you want to give everybody your website again, but then also like speaking engagements if they wanted to have you on a podcast or a video vlog or whatever. How can people get a hold of you for any reason?
Yeah, and I'm open to all of those. The website is under construction right now, but it's Monarch, B as in boys, C as in Charlie, S as in Sam.com. You can reach me directly at charles@monarchbcs.com, or again with the cell is area code 651-274-0585. And I'm open to all speaking opportunities or anything like this. I think this is awesome. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's I think the pleasure is ours, and our viewers, listeners. This will be on YouTube. It will I think it will be providing tremendous value, and anybody that is in need of advice or anything that could benefit, you want to learn more, don't be afraid to just reach out to anybody here. We all have our phones. We're very accessible people. And my office is always open.
Yeah, and since I'm in a major transition right now within my company, I'd love to come back in a couple months and tell you about my successes.
Let's do it.
I'm all in.
Thanks so much for listening, everyone. We'll catch you next time.